Hi there. This video is a special request from my wife. She asked that I respond to this video. Now, I haven't seen it yet, and I have never heard of Jon Doyle before, but she said it was interesting. She gave me some amount of outline about what the video is about, which I've mostly forgotten, but it was enough to convince me that I would have some pretty significant disagreements and thus be able to give some commentary. Just from the title and the subject matter, I've already got some thoughts. So the idea that Gaston is a hero or heroic or somehow admirable is an idea that I've seen before, and I've seen defenses of him that I find pretty broadly non-compelling. I think you have to ignore quite a bit of the text of the film in order to get at that. I presume he's going to give a defense of Gaston being a great masculine man and Belle being an ungrateful feminist, just based upon the title, and that is a perspective I don't find to fit the film very well. Additionally, I know there's going to be some disagreement. The title says that Beauty and the Beast is inherently right-wing. I don't think right-wing really means very much. I think typically when you say right-wing or left-wing, all you're saying is what someone is likely to vote. If something's right-wing, I think you're saying that a person who believes or agrees with that is likely to vote Republican. And if you say something is left-wing, I think you're saying the same thing, but about Democrats. And that will be specific to the point in time that you made the observation. I don't think there's much principle behind the ideas of right-wing and left-wing, although I have come up with a conception of the left and the right that I enjoy to give it more of a principle, but I'm not convinced that's how it's commonly used. And so I'm probably going to disagree with this John fella about what it means to be right-wing. I'm Buck Kansas, and I have some thoughts. So let's see what Jon Doyle has to say.
At some point or another, you've probably seen the popular animated Disney film Beauty and the Beast, which was released about 30 years ago to tremendous praise from critics and audiences alike. And I'm not going to waste your time with a summary of the film because you've probably already seen it by now. And if not, you're definitely going to want to watch it after we get done, because I am going to provide to you today a proper understanding of that story. And the first thing to kind of keep in mind before we get started is that how much time we spend with each of the characters, which perspectives we see them from, what we see them doing, what we don't see them doing, all of these things affect our perception of the story, who we sympathize with, who we're rooting for, etc. And Beauty and the Beast utilizes this quite well in order to push a radically feminist and destructive agenda that attacks masculinity, it attacks order, civilized society, strength, among many other things. There really just are so many important themes in this film that we have to discuss. And I get to do my favorite thing ever, which is overanalyze something in a way that is in accordance with my worldview. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Do stay tuned.
Okay. That immediately seems not to gel with the thesis, with the topic of the video. The title says it's implicitly like right-wing, and yet he's saying that it's structured and designed in a way that is supporting radical feminism and attacking a lot of things that are right-wing. So, odd start.
I figured that this would be a good note to end the year on because it does outline a very practical political ideology for us going forward, which of course is neo-gastonism. And that's why it's been my Instagram bio for the last few months, and people are Googling it like, what's a neo-gastonist? Well, it's you, after you watch the video at least. So the background of this is, I think it was last spring around Easter, I was with a young lady and she wanted to watch a Disney movie. And so I'm like, all right, we'll pick one, we can watch it. So she's scrolling and she's like, well, how about Beauty and the Beast? And I had seen this a couple times back in my youth, and so I liked it well enough. And so I was like, yeah, that's fine. So we're watching it. And then about 5 minutes into the film, the purported villain of the film appears on screen, Gaston. And keep in mind, I'm like tired, I'm falling asleep. I don't really even want to be watching this movie, But Gaston comes on screen and he immediately takes Belle's book from her and tells her that women shouldn't be reading books because then they might get ideas in their head. That woke me. I was like, for the rest of the movie, on the edge of my seat, just in awe, watching how based Gaston is and how implicitly right-wing this whole story is. And this girl, she had to witness the most eccentric, not autistic, eccentric behavior that she'd probably ever seen in her life. Like, she just wanted to watch a Disney movie, and I'm like over here taking notes on my phone, like connecting all of the themes to these really esoteric references and interpretations. And so, yeah, this is from where I formulated the political ideology of neo-gastonism. And it's important to remember that what we talked about in the beginning, how even with stories, our perceptions of them are often forced in order to manipulate certain outcomes that might influence our future perceptions or decisions. So Anyone who watches this film will easily identify Gaston as the antagonist. And this is done intentionally because the messaging of this film is actually deeply progressive. And that's the part I'm not joking about. Like, I'm going to overanalyze it for sport, but that part is actually true. And this is most obvious with the dynamic between Belle and Gaston, but also just in the fact that the audience is made to believe that Gaston is the villain of the story. And this is because this story is basically about this like miserable proto-feminist seeking to invert virtually every aspect of her reality. And because Gaston represents the natural and ideal state of man, and because they can't change that, since we all recognize instinctively that it's true.
Oh, no, 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 no. Gaston's not the ideal state of man. What do you mean? He's purely self-absorbed, utterly violent. He hasn't a thought in his head. He seems as though he can't actually read the book that he picks up that Belle has. He stares at it incredulously. Ideal man?
Proto-feminist seeking to invert virtually every aspect of her reality, and because Gaston represents the natural and ideal state of man, and because they can't change that since
Sorry, the natural state of man is the ideal state of man? That's... Ooh, big yuck. Big yuck. That's not a very traditional idea. I mean, I guess it depends on which tradition you're going with, but I think it was either Plato or Aristotle. They talk about the states of men and about how men can move between different almost levels of being, and the lowest state is the state of nature. The lowest state is you act like an animal where all you care about is getting food and having the best things and rah pleasure-seeking hedonism, which is the essence of Gaston. Gaston, from a traditional lens, is the lowest form of humanity. Oh, man. He thinks this is the part that's not controversial, that this is the part he's not joking. He's going to be joking later.
we all recognize instinctively that it's true, they have to instead frame it such that our perception of it is different, so that we perceive him to be the villain of the story, when in actuality, Gaston is the true protagonist of the story. He's the true hero of Beauty and the Beast. And so we have neo-Gastonism, which is a very simple ideology.
A little bit of a quibble. The protagonist and the hero aren't the same thing. The protagonist is the main character of a story, and so they don't need to be a hero. He's already pointed out that Gaston doesn't get a lot of screen time, and that's somehow twisting our perception. That would mean that Gaston can't be the protagonist. The hero, I can understand. You can make an argument that someone who's not the protagonist is the hero of the film. But like it's kind of already a little bit self-refuting. And also, he's definitely not the hero, but that's fine. He can lay out why he thinks Gaston's the hero.
Inspired by the actions of Gaston throughout the story, and it has 3 tenets. Number 1, women aren't allowed to read. Number 2, eat lots of eggs. And number 3, beat the shit out of furries. It's simple, yet effective. So that's my...
Okay. This might fully be a joke. I might be reading an Onion article and then responding to it earnestly, because I just can't imagine that that's really the position of this human.
Political platform. I'm a neo-Gastonist. We've restocked the merch store for the end of the year with a few new designs, one of which, of course, being inspired by the political ideology of the future, which promotes traditional gender roles, an early form of raw egg nationalism, and, of course, war against degenerate sexual behavior. And this is, of course, neo-Gastonism. So go check out the new designs. Late Christmas present idea, maybe. We've also got a white boy winter design that should be up there by now. It's a white boy skiing and kicking up snow onto George Floyd, who's stuck in a snowman. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. But anyways, I am going to give a summary of what this story is actually about, and then we'll go through and analyze the whole thing. So basically, when you view this story objectively, it becomes very clear that the true antagonist of the film is actually Belle, who's manifested some form of pathological narcissistic personality disorder, plain and simple. And the Beast actually serves as this supplementary character, the sort of tragic anti-hero to highlight one half of Belle's nature, which is the beast of her chaotic feminine nature when left unchecked. And so the true protagonist of the story is actually Gaston, who represents the beauty that Belle could experience if she were subject to the natural order of things under Gaston's authority. And so the title...
Sorry. He's saying that the Beast represents her chaotic feminine nature. He's not just a boy that she likes. That's a bit of a stretch. I'd like some citation. I'd like some supporting evidence for that claim. That's a little bit out there. He protects her from wolves. I doubt John Doyle is then saying that the chaotic feminine nature can protect women from the dangers of the natural world, because the beast protects her from, certainly from the wolves.
Beauty and the Beast, properly understood, is not the beauty of Belle and the beastly nature of the prince who's under a spell, but rather the two directions in which Belle's energy can be channeled, through a weak and insecure man who will allow her to become a destructive beast, mirroring his nature as a literal beast, or through a strong and capable man who will allow her to become a happy and beautiful wife and mother, mirroring his nature as a beautiful man who has fulfilled his proper role in society. But of course, we are made to believe that Gaston is the antagonist.
But then how, if the beast would help Belle become a beast, why does he stop being a beast by the end of the movie? By the end of the movie, he's no longer beastly because his inside has become beautiful, and so his outside is allowed to reflect that, thus the shattering of the curse that was put on him for being cruel to a stranger. And his story begins before Belle. The idea that she'd be happy with Gaston seems to ignore everything about the movie. All of their interactions, where she is unhappy every time she sees him. He tries to lock her father in a mental hospital in order to coerce her into being with him. He shows up to marry her when they haven't even been dating. He's as selfish as a character can be. Oh, we're 5 minutes in.
Antagonist of the story, because this film, broadly speaking, is feminist propaganda, which we will get into momentarily along with.
No, I don't think so. I would expect a lot of feminism to dislike this movie, but
so much more. But even this is subtly acknowledged during the film's best sequence, the most famous sequence in the film, which is the ballroom dancing sequence with the film's main theme playing in the background. And it sings of a tale as old as time, Beauty and the Beast. And we hear this and we think, oh, it must be the Beauty and the Beast that we can see on the screen. But it's not. The film is inviting us to read between the lines. Mrs. Potts is warning us. Think about it. A tale as old as time. This is in reference to the beginning of male-female relationships, along with time itself, which of course would bring us back to Genesis and the Garden of Eden. And what do we learn from that story? That the woman's nature, if left unchecked by strong male authority, will lead towards chaos and evil. She is predisposed towards this at an accelerated rate relative to men. And Gaston understands this.
Okay. I didn't know we were going to talk about Genesis. I've talked about it previously. This is fundamentally misunderstanding the story of Genesis and for Adam's role in the downfall, in the fall. Notably, I guess the short version would be, after Eve gets the apple, she turns to Adam. Adam's been there the whole time, even though he hasn't been mentioned. He's been silently standing next to her, not protecting her, not keeping her from eating the apple, from falling away. And importantly, Eve was confused. When the snake asks Eve why she's not allowed to eat of the tree, she says not only are they not allowed to eat it, but they're not allowed to touch it, which isn't true. It's not a thing that she was told. She was a little bit confused. And so later, when God comes and asks them, hey, what's up? Why are you hiding? Eve says that the snake tricked her, whereas Adam blames the woman. He blames Eve and implicitly blames God for giving him Eve, and that's why he sinned. Quite notably, the punishment that Adam receives for his sin is that all suffering and death will enter the world. And then the punishment that Eve gets is that, one, she's going to have to listen to what Adam says, and two, she's going to have the pain of childbirth. So implicitly, part of Eve's punishment is suffering, but Adam, broadly, his punishment is broadly bringing suffering into the world. So either the notion of Genesis is that Adam's sin is greater than Eve's sin, or it's a prerequisite to Eve's sin. It could easily be argued that Adam failing to protect Eve when she was earnestly confused was the first sin. So we disagree about Genesis. Oh, I guess it's also worth saying we disagree about what that song's referring to. A Tale as Old as Time, Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast is an archetypical romance that is a female fantasy where you find an unrefined man who has potential. His love for you is so great that he stops being a boy. He grows up and becomes a man who can care for and provide for you. He leaves his beastly ways behind. That's like a famous mythological archetype. So I'd say that's what they're referring to. 6 minutes? Oh no, this is gonna be long.
He was a hero and a great man who was trying to do right by his people, and yet the narrative frames him as though he is the villain. And we will explain how he tried to save Belle and his town momentarily, but first, we're going to go through the whole synopsis of the film right now so that I can prove to you that the essence of the film is in fact a revolutionary leftist essence. What it seeks to do is promote the complete inversion of reality as something that makes people happy, something to be celebrated. Woman above man, chaos above order, weakness above strength, etc. And if you're trying to recall the story, you might think it's basically about Belle and the Beast, and then this Gaston guy keeps butting in, but it's actually more intricate than that. Because when we first meet Belle, she's lost. And this is because she has no male influence in her life to guide her. Her father's weak, he's old, which is why that relationship is
Sorry. The idea that a right-wing instinct is that old people are weak and not useful and can't be good male influences, like, that seems nuts to me. That seems like a crazy idea. The idea that the left is like, old people, that's where we should get our masculinity, and the right's like, that's it's a swing.
Established before the interactions with Gaston and the Beast even become larger parts of the story, because from the beginning, the whole story is about Belle desperately needing masculine guidance. And Gaston and the Beast are basically competing to occupy that influence in her life, but for very different reasons, as we'll explain. But remember, as we said earlier, this is indicated by the title. Beauty and the Beast are both within Belle, and the struggle in the story is between the two competing forces.
Okay, I'd like to reiterate, he has provided no evidence that Belle contains beastliness. I would point out that I don't think that's even remotely true. If she overcomes beastliness, it's that she presumes that someone is ugly means that she can't love them. So I need to be shown some evidence that the story is about Belle's beastly nature,
which will decide which one will embody her essence. Will it be a strong, capable, charismatic, and therefore beautiful man to bring out her beauty? And the struggle in the story is between the two competing forces, which will decide which one will embody her essence. Will it be a strong, capable, charismatic, and therefore beautiful man?
Strong, capable, charismatic. Does it matter that he's not charismatic to her? Like, charisma is definitely in the eye of the beholder. I think there's a lot of conservative people who would say Obama wasn't charismatic, and then a lot of left people would say that Donald Trump isn't charismatic.
To bring out her beauty? Or will it be an insecure, pathetic, hideous beast, like literal creature that
he's not insecure by the end. That's like the whole point, is that the Beast is growing up.
Will fail to control her, which will leave her miserable. Because as we're reminded throughout the whole story, Belle doesn't know what she wants. She has no idea. She doesn't know what's going to make her happy. So naturally... No. At the very beginning, Belle says that what she wants is adventure. She wants to not just live in this provincial town and have nothing really noteworthy happen in her life. She wants to go off on an adventure, and then she almost immediately does. And yes, she very quickly learns that this adventure isn't as much fun as she thought. There are downsides to being on an adventure. She mourns the loss of her father and the fact that he's not going to be in her life anymore. And then she slowly begins to see that there is goodness in this new adventurous life she has. And then the Beast gives her the option to leave this whirlwind adventure, to leave this romance and go back to her provincial town so that she can save her father. And she chooses to return to the town to save her father, hoping to once more return to the Beast and continue that life, which she rightfully thinks she wants. I do not agree that Belle is portrayed at all as though she doesn't know what she wants. Maybe at first she's a little bit naive about what she wants, but the movie is about her wanting to not live a provincial life, doubting that choice, and then coming back to being like, yeah, this is right. I would like a more adventurous life. When she makes decisions, they basically like blow up in her face. But yeah, that's the story.
That's not the same thing. Being indecisive and having your plans not work aren't the same. What?
So it starts out by describing how exactly the beast came to be. And basically what happened was this poor, ugly old woman came to his castle asking for shelter from a storm, and she told him that she could offer him a rose. And the beast, who at the time was a prince, said no because she was ugly and poor. And at first you might think that this is based because she had poor physiognomy, but it wasn't. It was actually proto-Coomerism, because then the woman transforms back into her natural form as a beautiful princess, and the prince immediately starts simping for her. So it wasn't a rejection of her because he inferred from her poor physiognomy that she would have poor character, but rather that he couldn't just like lust after her. And then when he realized that she was actually a beautiful princess, he began simping. And the princess realized that he was this pathetic Coomer, and so she punished him by turning him into a furry, which is like an advanced stage of sexual.
Hold on. She explicitly does not punish him because he's become nice to her once she becomes beautiful. She punishes him for failing to treat her nice while she was ugly. That's explicitly in the text of the film.
Repulsed by her haggard appearance, the prince sneered at the gift and turned the old woman away. But she warned him not to be deceived by appearances, for beauty is found within. And when he dismissed her again, the old woman's ugliness melted away to reveal a beautiful enchantress. The prince tried to apologize, but it was too late, for she had seen that there was no love in his heart, and as punishment, she transformed him into a hideous beast.
So, no, she doesn't turn him into the beast because he was simping. And I'm gonna put a pretty big asterisk to check, was he simping? Because I think all he said was, oh, I'm sorry I was mean to you. And if I'm sorry I was mean to you is simping, then, well, I haven't seen a wedding ring on this fella. The intro made it implied that he's married with a child. All right.
Degeneracy, and the only way that he can break the spell and return to normal is if he falls in love with a woman who also is in love with him within a certain amount of time. And if he can't do that, he's going to stay that way forever. And so he starts throwing these temper tantrums and like gets depressed about it and just stays inside the castle. And I will say it's hard for me not to think that the beast is subtly based, because he's basically like an autistic incel. But throughout the film, you'll see that this is just a distraction designed to make people like us sympathize with him, think he's a Sigma man.
What? A shut-in incel is your... That would make him appeal to you?
Or whatever, when in reality he's just pathetic. And this is a fantastic example of the difference between the Beast, who we're supposed to believe is the hero, and Gaston, who we're supposed to believe is the villain, because both embody a position of power, but they treat it differently. It's a perfect illustration of what weakness and strength look like when they have power. The Beast acts as a tyrant, whereas Gaston acts as a noble aristocrat.
Oh my god! No! Gaston randomly beats people up at the bars? He steals? He breaks property? He's... What do you mean he's not a tyrant? He's a noble aristocrat. That's ludicrous.
And we see this here when the prince acts selfishly by rejecting the lower class woman from the castle during the storm unless she could satisfy his degenerate sexual desires, whereas a noble...
That's not... This is one of those jokes he was talking about. Okay.
Noble aristocrat would feel an obligation towards the lower classes and would help them out. Like Gaston, for example. Gaston is nice to his dysgenic manlet.
Fuck off. Gaston is nice. Gaston is nice to... I don't even know what that guy's name is. Gaston is not nice to that guy. That's a crazy idea. That's fully ignoring the movie.
Friends. In fact, he's basically his sidekick, but even when the Beast is a prince, he's a tyrant. And then when he's cursed, he still abuses those around him to where they cower in fear when he's present. And again, this is the difference between weakness and strength when they have power. But anyways, then we're introduced to Belle. She's leaving her house in rural France in this village. It takes place between the mid-1700s, mid-1800s, by the way, which is important because she has no mother figure present. Her father figure is weak. So basically, the people who were supposed to introduce her to the world, help her understand how it works, what her role is, they've failed to do that. And so she feels displaced. She's singing about how there must be something more than this provincial life. And she sings this after walking through her village, watching the community interact with one another. They're asking about each other's families, watching a mother cradle several beautiful children, etc. And she's on her way to the bookstore because since she has no sense of identity because of the failure of her parents, she has to retreat into books to derive her sense of identity. And she's on her way, and the villagers are singing, that girl's so peculiar. She's not like other girls. Yeah, because she rejects her role in the village. Everybody in the village has a job. They are all unseparated from the products of their labor, but not Belle. No, she feels entitled to more than that. There must be something more. But she doesn't work. She doesn't work towards that. She doesn't work towards that something more. She just lives in fantasy about it. She's a single, young woman with no obvious skill set. Anything that could bring her more, a job, motherhood.
Feels like noting reading would be a skill set in the mid 1700s. That would be a unique skill that she possesses. And importantly, the idea that the reason she wants to have adventure, the implicit reason she wants to have an adventure is because she reads her books. She reads her books and wants to have an adventure like what she reads in those books. That is not necessarily going to change if she has a mother figure or if she has a more macho man father. This argument is effectively books are bad, which I guess he agrees with, according to the intro.
Marriage to literally the most admired man in the village, she just rolls her eyes at that. She's entitled. She doesn't know what she wants. And the only cure to this is...
Well, we've just been over this. She does know what she wants. She knows she wants an adventure. She doesn't want to just live in town.
Strong male influence, which she has lacked for her entire life, which is why she's like this. This is why
I guess the claim really is a strong male influence. I mean, she doesn't get to read the books, so she doesn't read about adventure, and then she doesn't want an adventure. So books are bad, and good men don't let women read books. It feels like a parody. I don't think he means this.
Reiterate, Belle is the true antagonist of this story. Beauty properly...
I already mentioned what a protagonist is. An antagonist is the person who causes the conflict in a story. Belle doesn't cause conflict in the story. Like, she's incredibly reactive. There isn't even that much conflict in the story. Like, the beast kind of causes conflict. The wolves cause conflict repeatedly. The wolves would be a better argument for antagonist than Belle. I guess if your argument is she should have said yes to Gaston's proposal, then the whole plot doesn't happen. I guess in that way, she's causing the conflict, but I don't think you can be the protagonist and the antagonist. So that doesn't really work.
Understood is her appearance, and the beast is her nature. Or beauty is Gaston, and the beast is the prince. The true conflict is the weak nature of the beast versus the strong nature of Gaston. But anyways, she goes on to sing, here's where she meets Prince Charming, but she won't discover that it's him until chapter 3.
Right. She's excited to get married. She's interested in getting married. She likes the boys. The big adventure that she wants is to get married, which is not a particularly feminist narrative. It's pretty conservative. So I guess I'm going to unpause, but if he wanted to make an argument that Beauty and the Beast is a conservative, a right-leaning film because it says that the best adventure of your life can be finding your significant other, can be finding the person you're going to marry, then yeah, I think this is a right-leaning film. But I'm not hearing that. I'm not seeing that's where he's going to go.
And this is actually foreshadowing. This is foreshadowing and meta-commentary on the story itself. And the average viewer will understand this foreshadowing as when she meets the Beast, but she doesn't realize that he's actually Prince Charming until Chapter 3, or Act 3, the final part of the story, when the Beast is revealed to her to be a prince. But even then, he's not Prince Charming, right? In fact, the whole second act of the story is centered around him being very awkward and uncharismatic. But who does she meet immediately after this song? Who is the next person she speaks to? Gaston. And perhaps it is Gaston who she realizes is the true Prince Charming in the third act when he sacrifices his life trying to save her. Not even from the...
Come on. No. He doesn't sacrifice his life trying to save her. He slips on a roof trying to murder the Beast. That's not the same thing at all.
Beast, but from herself. And she realizes in that moment the gravity of her decisions and that maybe she should have stopped being so dramatic. And in fact, I will be making the argument that her entire voluntary captivity in the Beast's castle was just one giant shit test for Gaston. But anyways, here's where she meets Gaston. He's hunting. He's with his dysgenic manlet friend, his sidekick. And Gaston correctly figures that since he's clearly the best male in town, he deserves Belle because she's the most beautiful girl in town. And Gaston, by the way, is desired by virtually every...
I'm wondering if we're going to observe the fact that the only reason Gaston's interested in her is because she's pretty.
Woman in town, but his eyes are only on Belle, and so he greets her and he takes her book and he asks, how can you read this? There isn't any pictures. And she says, well, some people use their imagination, and this is the essence of Gaston. He values the objective, what he can see, what he knows is true and real. Belle, a narcissist, only values what serves herself. Like, sure, these words are nice, but only because I get to decide what picture they paint. And so Gaston tells her,
oh boy, okay. I feel like that's what you're doing in this show, Jon. You're choosing to read Beauty and the Beast to fit whatever abstract ideas you've decided it should embody instead of what it clearly says. Gaston being illiterate isn't noble, isn't praiseworthy.
get your head out of those books, which given the time period in which the story takes place, she was probably reading like revolutionary proto-Marxist literature, and Gaston was trying to save her from that.
Gaston doesn't know how to read a book without pictures in it. He knows nothing about proto-Marxist literature. Also, she was explicitly reading books about Prince Charming. She was reading fairy tales. She was reading romance narratives. We have no reason to think she was reading dangerous, scary ideas.
He says, it's not right for a woman to read. Soon she starts getting ideas and thinking because Gaston understands that the woman is particularly vulnerable to the whispers of the serpent. But jokes aside, what they're
I think it's a parody. I think I'm taking a parody too seriously.
trying to do here, if you can't tell, is appeal to this whole, no, I'm a girl and I can get educated. I don't have to have a family. There's more to that.
She literally wants a family. That's the books she's reading. That's her whole thing. And her whole story is her getting married.
There's more to life than that. Look at this big dumb guy. He can't even read, blah, blah. Because they have to appeal to the feminist narrative which this story is serving. But that being said, 100 years of feminism has vindicated everything that Gaston said. So Belle leaves to go help her father, and LeFou makes some joke about him, and then Belle gets angry. So Gaston berates his dysgenic manlet friend and defends Belle's father. Because even though Gaston recognizes that Belle's father is a weak man, he still respects tradition and hierarchy, that her father still has ownership of her. So Belle gets back home, and we learn that her father is an inventor, which in context means that this guy is literally facilitating the propagation of the Industrial Revolution, which will inevitably destroy the fabric of the town he's a part of through automation, through degeneration. But he does this in the name of his pride, winning first prize at the fair or whatever. So
Invention bad. Invention equals no good. It will destroy your village. It won't dramatically increase our ability to create food and increase the life expectancy of everyone in society. Invention bad.
he has some form of psychopathic personality disorder, and then
What?
he's a part of through automation, through degeneration, but he does this in the name of his pride, winning first prize at the fair or whatever. So he has some form of psychopathic personality disorder, and
Oh no. This gets views? People watched this? Is this what you want me to do? I'm never gonna do this.
then he defends Belle's interest in books, which makes sense because that revolutionary literature exists in part as a byproduct of the Industrial Revolution that he exploits for his own pursuit of glory, since this fixation on creating new material things bled into the study of the abstract and the immaterial. But since that large
No, actually that's fairly important. The idea that the study of the material is important goes all the way back to St. Augustine, who wrote about how important it is. I'll find the quote so I can pull it up. But no, the idea that it's good to investigate the material, that's a really, really old Christian idea. That's not an idea that comes about because of the Industrial Revolution, although that's a common misconception.
largely predated and transcends us, the new information had to just be criticizing all of the traditional information and basically throwing it all out in the name of progress or whatever. So Belle's father is working towards the industrialization of their town, and Gaston understands this. He understands the threat that it poses. But Gaston is an operator above all things, so he bides his time with this, but it will come up again later. So then her father leaves to go to the fair and literally goes down the wrong path as a result of his pride and his unwillingness to delay gratification by taking a longer path against the instincts of the horse, which knew it was dangerous, by the way. And then he asks his horse, well, where have you taken us? Because he is literally incapable of accepting personal responsibility, of course, symptomatic of his psychopathic personality.
We're going to flag this. Taking personal responsibility for your actions. Is this something Gaston's going to do in the film ever?
disorder. So then he gets chased by wolves into the castle. He meets the props and he asks, well, how was this accomplished? Because he is incapable of or unwilling to acknowledge the immaterial, that there's clearly witchcraft at play. He would rather think of it in terms of this like hyper sophisticated invention or very early form of transhumanism or something. So the beast comes down and he's upset to find that he's sitting in his chair. He immediately starts melting down, claiming that the man came to stare at him because he's so insecure about his appearance. And it's this really feminine display overall because he simultaneously chooses to come downstairs to get involved in this because he wants attention and conflict. His staff
Yelling and screaming are feminine?
had it under control. It wasn't even remotely in the same area of the castle that he was in, but he chooses to make it his problem and then immediately victimizes himself by claiming that the father is tormenting him for his appearance. Again, the beast is weak and deeply insecure. So the beast imprisons Belle's father. So now Gaston has saved Belle some time. He's gathered the whole town for their wedding. The guys are all happy. The women are all...
He saved some time. That's the pitch for planning a wedding without proposing.
all seething out of jealousy because he's not marrying one of them. And then he goes inside Belle's house to tell her about his ideal future, how they're married, how he's providing her with fresh food to cook, how he gives her 7 sons. He literally says that, like he is so our guy. But he has a plan. There is order to it. So, of course, Belle rejects this because she prefers to deal in disorder, in the chaotic. But instead of saying no, she tells him that she doesn't deserve him, which is another test. And if you've ever courted a young woman, you'll recognize this test. This is her trying to get you to tell her how great she is. But then she publicly humiliates him by throwing him into a mud puddle. Now she's singing again. She fashions this like makeshift headdress for herself while singing "Me, His Little Wife," and then she rips it off, rejecting it, singing again that she just wants so much more than this provincial life because she's literally rejecting her nature as a woman. She perpetually wants more, yet she doesn't know what will make her happy. She's always wanting more, but she doesn't know how to define that. So she runs into this field talking about how she wants adventure, which is symbolic of...
Yeah! Which is what she wants! She knows what she wants! She wants an adventure! We're gonna have to play more of the scene where Gaston comes in and he's got his muddy boots up on the table and he's just an uncouth child, because it's crazy to portray that as a reasonable, ordered pitch for your life.
Of not wanting to be tied down or whatever. And again, jokes aside, this is the message of the film, and it backfires spectacularly, as we'll explain later on. But it's like, think about that. I want more, I want more. She runs away from this organized wedding. She didn't have to lift a finger. The greatest man in the village, and probably the entire country of France at this point, frankly. And she runs...
Because he's strong? Like the strong man, best man? That's what we're going with? Strong man, best man. Okay.
Away from that in pursuit of more and ends up in an empty field. Like, this is very emblematic of the utter state of the Western woman. It's like,
right, she's not saying she wants more materially, she wants more in a spiritual sense, she wants more from a partner, she wants more from her life than just material goods. If all she was interested in was material goods, she could have gone with Gaston, who seems to be fairly successful in this town. No, she wants more than the material success she can see in front of her. That's good.
I reject the natural order of things. I want more. You're in a field. You're empty, literally in terms of geography and your internalized spirit.
Isn't a field a part of nature? Isn't it natural to be in a field? If you're saying that she should be in a state of nature, then yeah, she should burn the village down and run among the woods. Like, that's it's crazy.
Stupid one. But anyways, the horse comes back without her father, and so she goes with the horse to the castle, and she finds her father, but the beast refuses to let him go. And so now she's on her knees in front of him, looking up at him like, please, there must be something I can do, anything. And to the beast's credit here, he just totally rejects her advances because he just goes, no, he's my prisoner. And again, it's hard to write off the beast because he really is subtly based in that he's basically an autistic incel. But anyways, Belle offers to take the place of her father, and the beast agrees if she promises to stay there forever. And at this point, her father, who, yeah, he's not a strong figure in her life, but even he's like, Belle, what are you doing? Don't do this. And it just goes to show how women will literally destroy their own lives just to spite...
Oh, boy. The Gospel of John says that to sacrifice one's own self for those you love or those you care about is the highest form of love. That's what Belle's doing. What she's done is admirable. She is sacrificing herself for her father. She is showing the great love she has for her father. Of course, he should try to do the same and say, no, no, let me stay. You shouldn't take my place. Because they love each other. That's good.
Standards that they think are oppressive. Like, this girl literally rejected her town and everything that it had to offer. She rejects Gaston, who is literally the ideal male, all because she needs something more. She can't be held down. And then in less than 90 seconds, she agrees to spend the rest of her life in a castle with a monster.
Right. That shows how immensely she loves her father. She wanted more than she had. She's accepting less than she ever imagined. She expects that she's going to be living in this dungeon for the rest of her life as a prisoner, plausibly starving to death. That is incredibly noble, that she's willing to take her own self-interest, her own dreams and aspirations, and set it aside for her father. What are you saying?
And you can say, oh, she did it to save her father. But it's like, first of all, this is 1700s, 1800s France, and that guy is old and fat. He's sick now. He's got like maybe 2 years left. Secondly, she's actually...
Okay, so you're not supposed to love your father if he's sick and old. Gotcha.
contesting her father by disobeying his authority over her and doing so by masquerading it with the typically masculine virtue of sacrifice. She's literally...
So is it a masquerade if it's real? Like it's a real sacrifice she's making. She's really offering to sacrifice herself. And the idea that only men sacrifice, that's not particularly traditional. Yes, it is more traditional for men to sacrifice themselves than for women, but you certainly have lots of traditional stories where women sacrifice themselves for men, put themselves in danger all the time. Ruth, I think, is a famous figure from the Old Testament who puts herself in mortal danger in order to save men, and that's good. So, strange.
She's literally LARPing one of those books that she never should have been reading in the first place, frankly. And this is what happens to her. So she has no true concept of feminine identity because she doesn't have a mother figure. She rejects everything that she's called to do by her community because she regards it to be binding. And so the only sense of identity that she can find in her real life is inspired by that into which she retreated, which are those books. So she tries to be the hero figure because she recognizes the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, she chooses to be Christ-like, to offer herself up for those she loves. Right. That's noble. And, oh, man, the idea that she shouldn't be reading the romance books feels insane. So when he keeps saying that she's called to do something for the village and she's not doing it, is it marry Gaston? Is that it? Like, that's all she's called to do is marry Gaston specifically? She can't marry someone else? Because she does marry by the end of the film, and she lifts a curse on the local monarch, which restores order to the area, puts them back under a governmental structure that was active at the time. So, like, isn't she restoring order? I don't think this is a very feminist story.
Her pride, she failed to calculate how stupid of a hill it was to die on since her father's going to be dead soon anyways. Now she's in exactly the situation that she thought that she wanted to avoid, this de facto arranged marriage. So now she's literally in a stone dungeon crying because she thought she was too good to marry Gaston. Remember.
Right. This is a very noble sacrifice that she's made.
The toll will always be paid. Belle assumed authority over her father by sacrificing herself for him, which objectively was a bad move, and now she's crying about it in a room by herself.
Objectively a bad move. I can't agree. I think that display of love was a good move, was a good choice, and objectively results in the revitalization of the town and a happy marriage for Belle. So, objectively, it was a good call.
This is what happened.
You could argue that subjectively it was a bad idea, that in her subjective experience, where she was at that moment, what she knew at that moment, it was a bad idea to do that. But because outside of her subjective experience, knowing what was going to happen because of that choice, we can say that it was objectively a good decision.
Happens when women are allowed to think for themselves. But then the beast tells her that she can go wherever she wants except for the West Wing. And you'll never guess where this girl decides to go later. It's like you tell a woman not to do something and her HUD just recognizes it as like objective updated. Do that thing. But then the beast is like, you will join me for...
It feels crazy to say that don't go in the West Wing is a command she disobeys because she's a woman. That if she was a man, she wouldn't also go to the West Wing. That this is a Chekhov's gun. obviously she's going to go to the West Wing. Otherwise, you wouldn't have mentioned it in the story.
Dinner. This is not a request. And we have to remember not to be charmed by the beast, not to think that he's our guy, because his assertiveness over the woman is not from a place of confidence, but rather his own insecurity lashing out. Like Gaston does this because he's a Chad. And the beast isn't even doing this because he's like a Sigma male, but rather because, again, he's basically an autistic incel. And of course, she's like, I won't have dinner with...
I'm a little bit confused on the messaging because he keeps saying he's an autistic incel as a compliment, but now he's using it as an insult. So I'm not sure where he stands on being an incel. Maybe he's defaulted to it being bad again, but I would point out that the beast saying, you're going to come to dinner because I say so, that is the life he's used to. He's used to giving commands and them being obeyed, much like Gaston is. This is a parallel. This isn't a contrast.
You, yet again, another shit test, which he fails by throwing a tantrum. But we continue. Now we're at the lodge, all the guys are there, and Gaston's feeling a little bit down after the whole Belle situation earlier, and so the fellas cheer him up by singing a song about how much of a chat he is. Like, they literally have a song dedicated to how epic he is. All the men want to be him, all the women want him, and it's like, if he's the villain, why am I rooting for him? If he's the villain...
Oh my god. Why are you rooting for him? Why are you doing that? That doesn't make any sense. Man, I hope he talks about some of the specifics of the song. If he doesn't, then I will.
Why is everyone rooting for him? He's drinking with the boys. He's wrestling.
Belle's not rooting for him, and Belle's father's not rooting for him. So we've got at least two people not rooting for him. Everyone's not rooting for him. Everyone at the bar is. He impressed a bar full of people. That's our guy.
With the boys, he's singing with the boys, he's playing chess with the boys, he's spitting with the boys, he's shooting with the boys, he flips over the chessboard as a rejection of the abstract in favor of natural law. He's hoisting...
Sorry, so was it bad that he was playing chess then? Should he have not played chess?
People up with one arm. He's wrestling all the guys in town at once. He's talking about how he ate 4 dozen eggs as a boy and now 5 dozen eggs a day as a man, which is why he's roughly the size of a barge. I mean, this guy is it. He's loved by his community.
Okay, I don't think he's going to go through all of them. Importantly, the beast is much bigger than Gaston. So if being the size of a barge makes you it, then the beast is even more it. Some other lines in the song, yeah, he talks about no one wrestles like Gaston. Well, it turns out the beast is better at wrestling. He says no one fights like Gaston. Well, guess what? The beast is better at fighting. No one hunts like Gaston. Well, guess what? The beast sneaks up on Gaston. So at least implicitly, a better hunter. No one bites like Gaston. I tell you what, I bet the beast bites harder. And he says, every inch of me is covered in hair, which is hilarious because the beast is obviously hairier. So the whole Gaston song, hyping Gaston up as the manly man, also implicitly is saying the beast is even manlier.
Rejects books and sources because those are how weak people justify their beliefs since they're incapable of original thought. He takes care of his dysgenic manlet friend. He's dancing with him. Like, this guy's fantastic. I'd be on his...
Takes care of his friend. Boy. Doesn't read books. Books are bad. I see a bunch of writing on this guy's desk and on his computer, so I can't help but feel like this fella is literate. What a mistake.
Team every day of the week and twice on Sunday. How are we supposed to believe that this guy is the villain? I'm being serious again. Like, literally, he doesn't even have the typical, like, I'm evil and I want to do evil things.
No one plots like Gaston, takes cheap shots like Gaston,
plans to persecute harmless crackpots like Gaston.
It's like, he's just like, I'm the best and I want to marry Belle. And then the story's like, he's the bad guy because Belle wants to read books and be free in marriage would tie her down. Gaston?
No. Marriage to Gaston will tie her down. Marriage to the wrong man. Marriage to this boy, this child who can't do anything more than pursue his most base instincts. Oh boy. Maybe you should read a book or two.
Actually demonstrates a proper understanding of love, by the way, which the beast doesn't. We'll talk about that a bit later.
What?
Demonstrates a proper understanding. Marriage would tie her down. Gaston actually demonstrates a proper understanding of love, by the way, which the Beast doesn't. We'll talk about that a bit later.
Oh my God.
But now, since the Beast fails the shit test and Belle's not coming to dinner, the Beast is in his room sulking like, she'll never see me as anything but a monster. It's hopeless, just going total doomer mode. Meanwhile, Belle manipulates Clocksworth by exploiting his love of presenting information about the castle through tours to explore the one area she wasn't supposed to go to. And she finds the rose from the beginning with the witch, and she's like, oh, this rose in a glass case, so nothing will touch it. I'm going to go ahead and remove the glass case and try to touch it. And then the Beast finds her and gets angry because she did the one thing that she wasn't supposed to do, and then she immediately starts crying and victimizing herself. Now
Yeah, she says, I'm sorry, and starts crying, which she should do, because yes, she did break the rules. That's a reasonable response. Victimizing herself. Yeah, he's scary and yelling at her, and she did something wrong. When someone does something wrong and they're getting yelled at, sometimes they cry. That's a reasonable response.
she's fleeing the castle because she has no principles. She only cares about what immediately validates her ego. First, it was a hero complex. Now it's this, I'm too good to get in trouble for doing things that I wasn't supposed to be doing mentality. So she makes a promise to stay there forever, breaks the rules, decides she's not at fault, and then breaks the commitment. Like, this is literally how no-fault divorce works. She doesn't.
Oh my God. Okay. No, buddy. No, buddy. She does think that she's at fault. She says sorry. But what's more, she realizes she doesn't think she can make the sacrifice that she was seeking to make. That it's more than she can handle.
Doesn't know what's good for her. She always wants more. She's always too good for whatever environment she's in. Now she's getting attacked by wolves. And
too good for whatever environment she's in. Yeah, getting berated in an abandoned wing of a castle is not a very good environment. Most people should reject being in such an environment if they can. The fact that she was able to leave this bad scenario and chose to leave was a good decision. That's crazy.
so then she's saved by the Beast. She goes back to the castle with him, and now she's like trying to clean his wounds. But again, the Beast gets into this like autistic episode where he's growling at her for trying to touch his wounds, and
it hurts when she touches his open wounds. He doesn't want to be in pain. That's not autism, my dude. That's existing. Are we going to talk about how the Beast saving her from the wolves is a very manly thing to do? Is that going to come up?
he's like LARPing as an animal, because remember, Belle thinks he's actually a beast, but he's not. And he knows that. He's still a man, but he's LARPing. But anyways, then he gives her a whole library, like the biggest library you've ever seen. And that should tell you all you need to know right there. Like literally the Chad don't read books versus the Virgin. Here, take all of them. And then we get into this really weird montage of the Beast like learning to behave or whatever.
I just can't. So he is back to saying that being in incel is bad, right? Like now he's thinking it's bad. At the beginning he said it was appealing to him, and now he doesn't like it. And once again, really opposed to books and literacy. You know, the Bible's a book.
And what's important to note here is that Belle's validation and purpose comes only from control and power. She needed to
Oh, fuck off. Comes from control and power. Yeah, she feels really in control because the Beast saved her and brought her back because she was about to die at the hands of wolves and he rescued her. That's all about control and manipulation.
Officially and socially engineer the Beast into something he isn't to feel validated and powerful. Gaston wasn't enough for her because he was already perfect, and she
He was illiterate. At a minimum, he couldn't read. He cared nothing about anybody else. He just liked her for being pretty. He rejected the most unique part of her that everybody points out, which is that she reads books. So, like, that's a crazy idea. And of course your wife should call you to be better. That's one of the great virtues of getting married, is that you improve one another. If you think you're perfect, you probably shouldn't be getting married because you are not realistic about who you are. And there's no one out there who could deserve you. So just take yourself off the market.
Rejected the feminine attitude shared by virtually every woman in the village, which was that their validation was to come from being the wife of the best man. But
but no one is married to Gaston. No one is the wife of the best man. Many of the women we see are doing jobs. So I think that's just it's a crazy idea that the village supports the idea that you should just get married and have kids, and that's what Belle is opposing because she is in the process of getting married.
Since that implied a position of submissiveness to the man, it did not satisfy the revolutionary ego of Belle, who by this point is a sexual Marxist. And she even brags about this in a song, how she's able to change the beast into a perversion of itself. And you might say, but he's a person underneath. Yeah, but she doesn't know that, remember? She's literally trying to normalize bestiality to herself. White women and bestiality. Talk about a tale as old as time. I will not elaborate on this. However, just know that there is no greater indication that a white woman has given up on having a family than her adopting a male dog in her late 20s, early 30s. Like, we all know a few of those. But here's something else important to note. The happiest Belle is seen in the entire movie is during the tale as old as time sequence. Look at why that is. She's in a place in the middle of nowhere that she's totally unfamiliar with. She's surrounded by transhumanist, sentient, occult objects that talk. She's romancing a literal monster. Everything around her is completely inverted.
I'm recording this after the fact because in this section I argue that Belle was told by the staff about the curse, and that turns out not to be true. That never happened. So John's at least potentially right that Belle doesn't know about the curse, that Belle doesn't know that the beast is actually a person. But I would say that there's still some possibility that she knows. She's read a bunch of fairy tales. She specifically read a fairy tale about a prince in disguise, and she went into the West Wing and saw his portrait. It seems like she should know that something is at least more than it seems. Maybe she doesn't know that the beast is actually a human. It seems to me like she probably does know that. What's more, there's magic in this world. It's at least possible that when someone knocks on your door, they're a enchantress in disguise who's going to transform you. So it's also possible that in this mythical world, people know more about magic, and it's more normal to think this sentient thing I've run into is actually a person transformed. So John could be right. She might not realize that the beast is actually human, but kind of importantly, she doesn't kiss the beast until after he's returned to human form. So it's not, the charge of furry is abundantly not clear. Belle is not overtly physically attracted to this furry creature until after he transforms into a human again.
Because Belle can only thrive in chaos, in the realm of the unnatural. She's rejected her home and her spot at the top of the feminine hierarchy in favor of the complete inversion of everything that she formerly knew. Because Belle, at her core, possesses that revolutionary chaotic spirit, which is the consequence of unchecked feminine energy, not guided by a mother, not checked by her father, and influenced by proto-Marxist literature. And now she can only find purpose through chaos. And this is why the tale as old as time is in reference to the
My problem is that this isn't chaos. Is that she's moving the beast away from chaos towards order. Is that by calling him to be a better person, he stops being a slob, cleans up his room, makes his bed, in the words of Jordan Peterson, and then becomes worthy of her affections. So it's just, this view just isn't supported by the text.
The true plot of the film. Think about it. As old as time. What is that in reference to? Genesis in the Garden of Eden, where we see what happens when unchecked feminine nature is allowed to manifest. And this is dog whistling to the audience that they have to read between the lines and see that the true story is about the chaos and the order of the female condition.
So this is one of those problems with dog whistling where actually maybe you're just hearing shit and you should get your ears checked. This is not a dog whistle. They're not signaling that women are bad and Belle is like Eve and they're more prone to evil than men. I'm suspicious you haven't read that book you keep referencing.
And whether it will be the weak man or the strong man to channel her energy in destructive or productive ways, respectively. Beauty and the Beast are the competing sides of Belle, reflected by whichever force is able to channel her energy. The beautiful Gaston, bringing out her beauty within the natural order of things, or the hideous Beast, doing the opposite.
But isn't Gaston not bringing out the beauty in the natural order of things? He just is beautiful. She wouldn't be bringing out anything. Whereas the Beast she takes from a hideous creature and brings him into beauty by helping break the curse. If Gaston's perfect, there's no beauty to bring out of him. He just is beautiful. He probably should remain an incel. He probably should stay unmarried. After all, Paul says it's better to be unmarried. So yeah, Gaston should just keep on keeping on.
Allowing her to become a destructive beast. But even then, stop laughing, this is serious. Even then, inherent to chaos is that it's always changing. So she still can't be happy in this ideally chaotic environment that she's created. And so the beast releases Belle so that she can go back to being with her still sick and dying father. And like, as a man, I can't respect this. Like, she literally put you through all of that. And then she's just going to go back to the life that she wholeheartedly rejected in the first.
That's wild. Okay, so first, it is not clear that she's permanently leaving. The beast thinks she might be permanently leaving, and he's mourning that. He's mourning the fact that she might not return to him. He gives her the mirror in the hopes that she will look back on him and maybe return. The beast allowing her to leave is him sacrificing, is him saying, I don't want to be this hideous monster, but I can't hold you in bondage. I can't bar your way if I truly love you. If I truly love you, I must sacrifice myself for your sake. This is a biblical expression of love. And importantly, Belle saying, really, I can leave, marveling at the fact that she's released from her obligation, is a reversal of earlier where she transcended that obligation. Now she's saying that it is important to her and it's noteworthy to her that the beast is releasing her from her word. And so she does care about her word. This is a crazy take.
First place. Plus, it's this whole, like, as long as she's happy, that's all that matters mentality, which is just rationalized weakness. That's all that is. And
no, it's self-sacrifice. It's sacrificial love. Boy. If you're not willing to sacrifice your happiness for your loved ones, don't get married.
This is the opposite of Gaston, which we'll talk about in a second. But again, the true nature of the beast is revealed. He is a selfish aristocrat. His entire...
Selfish? He's selfish? He lets Belle go and that's selfish?
Help. His best and only friends are counting on him to break this curse, and he throws it away for his own self-image of being like this compassionate, understanding guy or whatever. He's at the top. He's in control. He has an obligation to his people, and he throws it away out of weakness. He's pathetic. So,
oh man. Okay, really importantly, letting her go. We know objectively from watching the movie that letting her go is one of the final steps to getting her to love him. That giving her the freedom that she's wanted shows to her that she can submit to him, that they can become partners. So it's objectively wrong. And importantly, if he kept her there, it's not clear that she would have fallen in love with him in time. So I can't agree that he's failing his people by letting her go.
Belle finds her father. Update, he's still dying. And now there's an angry mob coming to lock Belle.
So we keep doing this. There's no evidence that he's dying. He is just old and fat. He's dying in the sense that anyone is dying.
His father in the insane asylum for trying to undermine the distributist agrarian economic model of the town, and also
No. Gaston's explicitly trying to imprison Belle's father so that Belle will marry Gaston instead. He's trying to manipulate her.
For ineffectively spreading word about the beast because nobody actually respects him or takes him seriously, and so they just assume that he's crazy. So Gaston tells Belle that he can make all of this stop if she just agrees to marry him. And Belle says no, because being married to the literal ideal man and living happily ever after to save her father is frankly beyond the scope of her operations. Unlike
being blackmailed by Gaston into marrying him is something she's unwilling to do. This is a level of sacrifice that she's not willing to meet. She's willing to stand up to evil when she encounters it. Yes. Good. Good job.
agreeing to live in a castle with a literal monster for the rest of her life to save her father earlier, right? And this is because Belle's true mission above all else is rejecting male authority. She does this by rejecting her father's...
But earlier she accepted living in the castle. So like you really can't. She doesn't reject all male authority. She doesn't. So it doesn't make any sense.
Wishes in the beginning where she gets herself locked up. Now she rejects Gaston's wishes and presumably her father's wishes, since he's anti-beast and at least Gaston sympathetic or Gaston adjacent at this point, to let him be taken away instead of, God forbid, taking a break from having the Midas touch of chaos. And like we said earlier, Gaston is an operative. He understands that Maurice's work as an inventor will ultimately be destructive to his town in the long run, but he's also willing to...
He doesn't say that at all. He doesn't make any comments about thinking that Maurice is going to make inventions successfully. His arguments consistently are that Maurice is a crackpot who doesn't make anything useful.
He'll let Maurice continue to be free if Belle marries him because he knows that his 7 sons will end up wielding enough power in the town to counteract any of those negative effects. But for the time being,
This is just rambling. There's no support.
he's fine with just removing him from the society to go to the insane asylum. And this is when Belle turns her subversive efforts to the townsfolk. She exposes them to her occult mirror prop and tells them about this mythical creature because she wants them to think that her father isn't actually crazy. And she wants to get the townsfolk to indulge in her occult bestiality fantasy with her. And it is
No, she's showing part of objective reality. They are denying the truth that the beast exists, and she's saying, no, I have objective proof that he does exist. Let me show you that. This is the stuff this guy was saying earlier was good. What are we doing?
is here when Gaston realizes that this has all been one big shit test. He tells Belle that he suspects that she has feelings for the monster, and Belle replies by saying, "He's no monster, Gaston, you are." And at this point,
right, that's a big part of the movie. The part of the point of the movie is that Gaston is more monstrous than the beast.
Gaston realizes that Belle exists to pervert and degenerate everything that she comes into contact with. It is no longer about his dream of making her his wife and giving her a happy and fulfilling life. Gaston realizes now that it is more than that. It is about an obligation to his people. She is the ultimate wielder of destructive feminine energy, and he realizes that the only way to stop it is for him to finally take control of her and provide to her that authoritative masculine influence that she so desperately needs. Her father's influence is taken care of. It's removed. He's gone now. So the only thing left is this monster. So Gaston begins.
I'm just fascinated. So I don't agree that he's given up his dreams of marrying Belle. I'd say that it seems like what he's doing is he wants to go kill the beast because the beast is another suitor for Belle's hand. And so it's only after he thinks that she's in love with the beast that he starts suggesting we go kill the beast. Gaston's entire motivation is based upon a woman who doesn't like him, who said she doesn't like him, who rejected his proposal. He's hanging around a girl who doesn't like him only because he thinks she's the prettiest, and he's unwilling to go marry one of the 3 beautiful women who explicitly love him because of selfishness, pride, because only the prettiest girl in town will do. I don't even think Gaston is based. All of his decisions are based around this one woman who's already made it clear she doesn't like him.
Basically like rhetorically psyoping the townsfolk to garner support for his cause, basically just like inventing these bad outcomes that could potentially happen to scare people. And because he's respected, within seconds, the men are marching with Gaston to the castle to kill the beast, singing Gaston's praises the entire way there. They're singing, "We're counting on Gaston to lead the way." And this is Gaston's arc as the true protagonist of the story. If there's 2 things he's known for, it's being the best hunter in the village and attracting the most women in the village. And so now he must conquer his most deadly hunt yet in order to stop the true beast, Belle's destructive feminine energy, thereby conquering the most beautiful woman in the process, because Gaston...
We keep going. So they also sing about how if they don't understand something, they think it's scary and want to destroy it.
We don't like what we don't understand. In fact, it scares us, and this monster is mysterious and bleak.
That's the mob that Gaston leads.
Is the hero. Belle is the villain. And the beast is basically a tragic anti-hero. And in fact, the beast is such a weak leader that when the castle is under attack, he's pouting in the West Wing with no plan, no way to inspire his people, whereas Gaston literally just makes up a few stories, and within 5 minutes, he has an
Makes up a few stories. Lies. Manipulates.
armed caravan about to storm the castle. They've got a song prepared, and because Gaston is a true aristocrat with honor, he tells those below him that they can have whatever they can find for themselves. However, the beast is rightfully his because he's the leader, and the people all respect this because they respect Gaston, because Gaston has a true allegiance to noble and traditional aristocracy. And in fact, the castle's...
Because he's bitter and jealous and wants to kill the man that the girl he likes is in love with. He is as childish as they come.
counterattack wasn't even launched by the beast. It was launched by a candle. But then Gaston finds the beast.
Right. The beast has resigned himself to death, and he would rather his servants don't fight back. He'd rather his servants let the townsfolk come and kill him because the beast has lost his great love. I agree he's being a melodramatic sad boy, but it's not bad that he's refusing to lead his servants in his defense. If anything, it's noble that his servants love him so much they're willing to defend him when he's not willing to defend himself.
And the beast, seeing an arrow aimed at him, he literally turns away because he's pouting over a woman. Gaston recognizes this.
Right, Gaston's also pouting over a woman. That's why he's here.
And tries to do him a favor by at least awarding him a soldier's death. So he shoots him with an arrow, and instead of just continuing
Arrow in the back, not a noble soldier's death.
to shoot him with arrows and killing him, he lets the beast go out fighting. But the beast refuses to fight back, but then Belle shows up, and oh, now the beast is fighting back. And Gaston yells, "It's over, beast! Belle is mine!" But what is...
Right. Proving that Gaston is doing everything for Belle. That Belle is his entire motivation in the film.
What does this mean? What does he mean, it? It is over. Something that he and the beast have both been experiencing. Gaston means this metaphorically. It's over, meaning Belle's reign of chaos.
No, he means the beast's life is over. He means the fight's over. Come on, man.
She will now be under his authority, and she will be happier and stabler for that. The beast cannot have this because he's insecure. He would rather have Belle be in control over him and continue to invert reality than have her be with another man. This is different than Gaston, who asserts himself from a place of objective.
Gaston's literally fighting so that she's not with another man. That's his whole motivation. He started the fight for this. Gaston's position is that he is willing to die to get Belle because he likes Belle so much. And he has to engage in mortal combat to have any chance of having her because she doesn't like him. It's not based. I think it's the most extreme simping there is.
Value and confidence. The beast asserts himself from a place of insecurity. Gaston being with Belle would make both of them happiest, but the beast being with Belle would just make the beast happiest, or at least...
Belle literally shows up because it would make her happier to be with the beast. And her returning, showing the beast that she loves and cares for him, inspires him to love and care for himself. She makes him better at all times. And here in particular, he's lost that insecurity because Belle has come back and shown her love for him.
Less miserable, which is why he was literally willing to let Gaston kill him about 2 minutes prior to this. This is the difference between confident, capable love and weak, insecure love. The beast let Belle go because he just wanted her to be happy or whatever. Gaston says, no, I can make her the happiest and provide to her the best life, and I will stop at nothing to do this for her.
But Gaston's not confident that he can win her over to him over the beast. He thinks that the beast is an unstoppable force unless he can kill the beast. He's not willing to take Belle's wishes into account. He's only interested in himself and his own thoughts and his own perspective. He's as selfish as they come.
But the beast is incapable of this because he acts exclusively through insecurity. And so then the beast lashes out and almost kills Gaston out of insecurity, not out of Belle's best interest.
Out of strength, right? Like, that's the whole thing, is that he's a better fighter. And he has Gaston in his grip, and Gaston starts sniveling and begging for his life. And then the beast has learned to control himself, has learned to control his bestial nature. He's learned to be in control of his anger, and is willing to spare Gaston. That's the point. The point is that beauty inspires the beast to be in control of the beast. But importantly, the epitome of a man in this movie isn't somebody weak. The epitome is a beast in control of himself, because he has to be strong enough to defeat the Gastons of the world, but in control enough that he doesn't hurt Belle, that he doesn't push her away. That's the whole point.
And this really is a Cain and Abel situation. So Gaston, who's not prideful like Belle, who's not insecure like...
Not prideful. He has a whole fucking song about how he's the best.
Like the beast, he humbles himself and asks the beast for mercy. He's a leader above all else, and he knows at this point the only way to save the objective and stay in the fight is to ask for mercy. So the beast lets him go, and then gets distracted by Belle, and so Gaston capitalizes on this, and he stabs the beast.
Anything about stabbing the back being not aristocratic, being ignoble? Are we gonna say that? Especially after being shown mercy?
But because of the rain, he loses his footing and tragically falls to his death. Now,
right, because Gaston is incapable of controlling his anger, because Gaston is so jealous, so prideful, he comes and makes a self-destructive act. And that's his end. His end is that he is so consumed with himself, so unable to accept that he has lost, that he kills himself trying to destroy his enemy.
this is where the story actually ends. Everything else is basically just a humiliation ritual and feminist propaganda, because Gaston understood that the beast in his animal form was pathetic and that he couldn't properly love Belle because he was a weak man. And so he sought to put him out of his misery and do the job that he was incapable of doing. And still, the beast didn't even defeat Gaston. At no point did he best Gaston in any capacity.
He had Gaston at his mercy. He was holding Gaston, able to kill him, and then he let him go. He did best Gaston. He proved he was a better fighter than Gaston. He snuck up on Gaston, proving that he was a better hunter than Gaston. Oh my God. It's got to be an Onion article. It's got to be a straight-faced joke.
He literally won via technicality, but now he's still dying, but he says, well, maybe it's better this way, because he's realizing that he just killed Gaston over a literal woman and his own insecurity, and that if he just stays...
Gaston showed up to kill out of insecurity.
With Belle now, more destruction is the inevitable result. He realizes that Belle inadvertently killed the most beloved man in the whole village, and now Belle, trying to maintain...
Belle inadvertently killed? That's a crazy chain. To say Belle has any responsibility for Gaston slipping on a roof and falling to his death, nuts. That's nuts.
Her control over the beast commands him, no, don't talk like that. So then Belle says that she loves him, the curse breaks, and now the prince is back through this shape-shifting ritual, and guess what? He is significantly less handsome than Gaston. Now they're getting married, and it's like, who are all these...
I think your argument might really be beauty makes people better. That the most beautiful people are the best, or the strongest people are the best. And that's it?
People at the wedding, where did they come from? I don't know. There were a lot of other questions left to be answered. Does LeFou avenge Gaston's death? How long did it end up taking for Maurice to die? Would Belle and Gaston's children have recognized the state of Israel? I don't know. But the true moral of the story is that the nature of nature is right. What is natural is therefore right. Inversion of the natural order is inherently chaotic and therefore destructive, and man must be above woman to prevent or at least minimize that, generally speaking. And honestly, I think Gaston just got unlucky. I don't really think there was anything else he could have done. You know, you could say that he should have just shot the beast with more arrows and finished.
He should have just married one of the girls in town who liked him. Easy. Stop simping, bro.
Him off, but it's like Gaston he just really had this understanding of honor and chivalry.
Honor and chivalry. Stabbing a guy in the back after you've surrendered, sniveling over your life. Oy vey. Trying to get the father of a woman you like arrested and imprisoned in an insane asylum because she refused your advances. That's chivalry. It's gotta be a joke.
We just can't comprehend. So he's a hero. He died doing what was right, and we honor his sacrifice by upholding the principles of neo-Gastonism in our everyday lives. So check out the neo-Gastonist shirt. Check out the new and restocked merch. Check out getundertack.com if you want some really solid underwear. They're a good friend of the channel. But other than that, have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next year. Hey guys, if you like this,
it's gotta be a joke. It's gotta. It was much worse than I expected. All right, I've had a little bit of space away from it since watching it and reacting. I want to finish up my response, say kind of my overview of what happened. I think most likely Jon Doyle is tongue-in-cheek throughout most of this video, but I just didn't really get it. I can't really see where the jokes start and the truth begins. I don't see the truth behind the jokes. I'm not seeing it. He doesn't hit me the way Sacha Baron Cohen or Matt Walsh or Colbert in the Colbert Report did. I'm not seeing it. To me, it's just bad ideas. But plausibly other people can see what's behind the joke and see when the jokes start and end. So I would probably resist taking him as seriously as I did here, but that's kind of who I am. So overall, his argument for what the Beauty and the Beast was about, he basically makes the argument that the overarching story is about Belle, a girl who doesn't know what she wants, Gaston, a great man who she ought to desire. She pushes him away, and then she finds this destructive force, the Beast, and she starts moving towards him, and Gaston tries to save her from this act of self-destruction, but tragically he dies, and Belle goes off to doom herself with a furry. I don't think that lines up very well with the film, particularly because I don't think Gaston is a very good option for romantic partner, principally because he doesn't pay attention to Belle. He's only interested in Belle as a physical object, not as a person. Notably, every time Gaston sees a reflection, he can't help but stare at himself in it, which seems to be a reference to Narcissus, for whom narcissism is named after. It's a Greek myth where there was a handsome young man who spurned all of his suitors and was obsessed with his own beauty. So the goddess Nemesis cursed him to fall in love with his own reflection, which ultimately resulted in him turning into a flower after staring himself for too long in a pool of water. I'd say that Beauty and the Beast is principally about Belle, who wants to go on an adventure, who wants to find her Prince Charming, and she's presented with two options. She meets Gaston, who has no interest in her interests, no interest in finding out about her and becoming the man that she wants to marry. And then she meets the Beast, and the Beast initially pushes her away, but then comes back to her, finds out about her, finds the things that she is interested in, and rises to become the man that she wants to be with. So principally, the message for men is to be interested in more than just how a woman appears, find out who she is as a person and whether you're attracted to that, and then grow up and become the man that she wants to be with. The lesson for women is that they shouldn't simply be interested in a pretty boy. They shouldn't simply be interested in a partner who is strong. They should be interested in a partner who is strong and in control of himself, who is strong but willing to bend to protect her and her interests, which is the Beast. I've been Buck Kansas. Thank you for listening. Bye.